Is it working? Let's make sure everybody. Okay. I'm gonna fix. I think the chat wasn't set up for everyone, so I just changed it. So if everybody wants to try now and make sure it works, there we go. Thank you. Calling in from La Quinta. All right. Thank you, Robert, for sharing. So share in the chat where you're dialing in from, and then just a little bit about your business. So we got Los Angeles. Aloha. I wish I was there. I could use a little tropical time right now. Of course, being in Southern California in the winter, right? We're not back east with the blizzards going on, right? Hanging out at the beach in the February. All right, looks like we got mostly Southern California. All right. And Wisconsin. Oh, we have the cold weather back there in Wisconsin. Hey, Robert. Luke. Yeah, don't forget to share what kind of business do you have? I'd love to know in the room if you're B2C, B2B, so business to business, business to consumer. I'm sorry, I'm in Los Angeles. I'm in the Venice Beach area of Los Angeles County. So about a mile-ish from the ocean. All right, commercial printer. All right, we have residential landscape design, physical therapy, personal training. All right, a little bit of everything. All right, inventor looking to start a business. Welcome to entrepreneurship. All right, everybody. If you're just walking in the room, so to speak, walking in the room, share in the chat where you're dialing in from, what type of what type of restaurant. I saw a sushi restaurant. What type of business you have. That would be great. Food truck commissary. All right. The world has changed with food, right? I don't know in other states, but here in Southern California, you can have a traditional restaurant, you can have a pop up on the sidewalk, you can have a home-based restaurant now, Mako program. How we dine out these days is quite different, right? All right, so we have non-profit leadership, biotech consultant, psychotherapy, home health care, skilled nursing and therapy. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to use that one. That'll be an example I'm going to use. Thank you very much. All right, so that's 9:01. I'm going to go ahead and start, make sure we get everything in here. So welcome everyone. Just keep sharing if you want to include yourself in the chat, just where you're dialing in from and what type of business. So I can maybe use them as examples during the class. Okay, so welcome to Social Media Essentials for Business. So, a little bit about me if you haven't yet met me in a previous class somewhere virtually around the country. You can see here, I've been in the online space for a few years. Right? I say when the internet dinosaurs roamed the earth back in '98. Worked for a gourmet gift basket company when I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area, and started there. They were a traditional catalog and retailer, and I started their e-commerce business back around 1998 and turned it into a multi-million-dollar part of their business. 20, actually, you have to forget to update the slides. I'm now 22 years as of this year in and out of the wine industry, but I do work with all types of industries, as you can see on the slide, B2B, B2C, a little business to government as well. And I do teach all over the country for SCOREs and SBDCs and business source centers, women's business centers, etc. And I always recommend, if you are able to, serve in your local business community, whether you're serving as board members or ambassadors, committee members. Definitely it helps you and your local business community. So you can see here, I do serve on a couple boards here locally in Los Angeles area. Right, and it says I'm cutting out. Is anybody else having that problem? It could be my funky voice. I have a little bit of a sore throat, cold going on here. Is everything good? Sound better? Hopefully everything good. Okay, no cutting out. Okay, so maybe it might be on your end. I don't know. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, everybody hears me fine. Perfect. So the world of marketing and advertising, right? I share this in all my classes, right? Where do you go to spend your time and money, right? Of course, today we're talking about social media on one of the planets here on our world of marketing and advertising, right? You can do traditional TV, radio, print ads, billboards, PR, promotional products, networking, and then, of course, a lot of digital options as well, right? We've had websites for quite a few decades now, and internet advertising, social media is about 25-ish years now, which is unbelievable. It's been that long. Email marketing about just as long. Search engine optimization, text and Wi-Fi marketing, a little bit newer in comparison on the market. Affiliate marketing, I did that with that gift basket company like 100 years ago. So it's been around a while. Social media influence, that's a whole new job category, right? We didn't have that, say, even 10 years ago, I think, social media influencers. So people making money doing stuff on the internet. So there's a lot of opportunities, right? But not all these are going to be appropriate for everybody, right? And of course, it depends on where your customers are, and budget would be a deciding factor, right? So very important to figure out like where you should be, right? So today we'll be definitely talking about social media. And I always say before you start spending that time and money is to know where you should be, right? Before you go any further, know exactly where you need to go, right? You wouldn't hop on your local bus or train and say you need to go downtown, but you wouldn't figure out like where, which bus or train or whatever. You're going to waste time and money traveling around trying to get to your destination. So same with marketing. You want to make sure you have a plan in place, right? You know what bus you need to hop on, so to speak. So I always say start with a marketing plan, right? So this is from my Marketing Plan 101 class. I always just kind of tease it in this class. So today is number 5, where we're talking channels, specifically social media. But if you haven't done a marketing plan, I will, definitely going to watch my Marketing Plan 101. I think I'm teaching it on Thursday. But have some goals in mind. Number 2, especially I say is the key to your marketing plan is who are your customers and where they hang out, right? Once you know who they are, then this class in particular, I'm not showing the basics of how to post on Instagram and all that. This is going to be where are people hanging out by the demographics and that. So very important to know who your customers are first and to go exactly where they're at, right? We don't have to be everywhere. Don't follow the latest trend if your customers are not on that particular platform. All right. And then doing just kind of the analysis, SWOT analysis, right? Your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, competitor analysis, unique selling proposition that speaks directly to your ideal clients, if you have that figured out, of course. Your branding, your messaging, your story, like is that speaking to your ideal clients, right? And I said today we're talking channels, social media, and then having a plan in place, right? To know who, how, what, where, when, budgets, all that, processes, tools that you need, people you need to execute on that, right? Having that in place, and then knowing to look under the hood and measure and see is it working, right? We don't want to just kind of throw the spaghetti on the wall to see what sticks and pray that our dollars are being spent correctly, our time is being spent correctly. So making sure that you are analyzing everything as well. So I recommend if you haven't done the marketing plan or even a business plan, business plan, SCORE, find a mentor. They can definitely help with that, even a marketing plan. Attend my class, and I have every recording on my YouTube channel if you want to watch it anytime. But definitely have a marketing plan in place. Even go back if in business for a while, it's a good idea to have a plan in place. Okay. So on to social media. Build it and they will come only works in the movie. Social media is a build it, nurture it, right? And hopefully they will come and stay, right? This is engage them and they will come and stay. So Seth Godin, I would say one of the marketing gurus out there. Sure, he's written many marketing books out there, right? So it's not hey, I'm going to start posting on social media. They're going to show up, start engaging. It does take time to nurture that experience and engage with them and all that. So very important. It's not the field of dreams, right? So my top 10 social media marketing mistakes, I say they're pretty standard mistakes not to make, right? So number 1, no plan in place. As I mentioned, have that marketing plan in place so you know where to focus first. Number 2, not being consistent, right? That's a big C word in marketing, being consistent across all of your platforms all the time, right? You don't want to not show up so people can engage with you and see your content and hopefully buy from you, your products or services. Number 3 and number 4 are kind of tied in together. So if you're not clear about your long-term and short-term goals, you probably are going to expect too much in too short of a time and give up, right? So when short-term goals should just be getting on social media, setting up your platforms. Hopefully everybody here has done that, or at least some platforms. But it really should be what considered a long-term goal. I call it a slow burn, right? It takes time to, like, once you get content out there, get in the algorithms, and all algorithms are different for each platform, start showing up, right? And being consistent. So it should be a long game for you, right? Not I'm going to start posting and automatically people are going to start loving me and following me and coming to my place of business and buying from me, right? So be realistic about what social media is, right? And then picking platforms based on what you like, not what your customers, not where your customers are, right? So unless you are your customer, your exact buyer persona, you shouldn't pick based on what you like. I hear this all the time. That's why I develop these mistakes. Like, oh, I really prefer, I hang out on Instagram. So I just kind of like shove something over to Facebook. I just have it repost over there. Or I don't really like LinkedIn, so I don't really hang there. And that's where you should be, right? So don't base it on what you like, unless again, you are your ideal customer persona, right? Should be where your customers hang out. Right. No idea which platforms your ideal customers hang out. So we're going to go over that today with each of the main platforms out there. Not measuring the right numbers. So we always look at I call vanity numbers, like how many followers we have. And right, I would say a few years ago, right, everybody was like hyper on getting like, I need 100,000 followers. And some people would buy followers just to get those numbers up. But it's like, it really wasn't quality, right? If you're buying followers or just getting that number up, are you giving them content that they want to interact with? So if you have 1,000 followers versus 100,000, but those 1,000 followers are truly your customers and engaging with you, that's more important than having that big number, right? Not having quality content in place, images and video, etc. Right? Marketing is all about content. We'll talk a little bit about that down the road here. Trying to do it yourself if you don't like social media. Anybody here want to admit, like raise your hand, say yes in chat, like you hate social media, you don't hang out on it, you like dread it. Anybody here? It's okay, no judgment. Okay, we have a couple hands. Right, it's okay. Right, and should you be the one that's doing it? Right, you don't have to do it personally. You don't have to like, oh, I don't want to post up what I ate for lunch and where I went on summer vacation. You don't do it personally, but you do have to embrace it for your business if that's where your customers are hanging out. Some of you might have customers that aren't really heavy on social media, right? So it wouldn't be as important as for other people. But if you don't like it and you kind of resent, no one likes to do, like our parents wanted us to clean our room and eat something we didn't want to eat. Like, did we resist? Yes, right. So again, if you're not a fan of social media, that's okay, but make sure you're doing it for your business. It doesn't have to be personal as well. And then thinking everybody can do social media. So this is based on real world conversations I've had, like, oh, my 17-year-old daughter, she's great at creating Instagram reels with trending audio. So I'll just have her do my marketing for me. Right. So I want you to take your marketing as serious as any other role in your business, right? Just because she's great with people, you probably wouldn't make her your HR manager, or she gets straight A's in math, you wouldn't make her your accountant, right? So we shouldn't relegate our marketing to our kids, right? Or somebody just doesn't have the experience. Maybe have somebody like, oh, I'll just have my office manager. She can post some things here and there, but she really doesn't have any sense of like strategy, where the right places to go, what kind of content and all that. It's kind of just shooting in the dark. So take your marketing just as seriously. I mean, social media is supposed to be kind of fun and raw and all that, but it's like there really is strategy behind it. Any part of your business, email marketing is definitely double the ROI of social media. So that one, definitely make sure somebody is doing it that knows what they're doing, but definitely take it seriously. Okay. I had somebody once say, can I train her 11-year-old son to do Canva so he could take over the company social media? And I'm like, let him finish, I don't know, elementary or middle school, like before he takes over the company social media and marketing. That's a little no. And why you should be on social media, right? Why you can't ignore it. So it definitely increases brand awareness, right? Humanizes your brand. Like, we're all small businesses, right? We're not Procter and Gamble and Starbucks and Apple, right? We don't say build relationships, to do business with them. Or just, I like the products and I go get them, right? For us, right? They want to know who we are, right? Why we're doing what we're doing, as small brands. We make connections more as small brands with our customers than the big brands, right? They tend not to know who we are. I walk into an Apple store, I'm just, number, 10,176 on their list, right? Increases website traffic potentially. So as you're building your social media and linking out to your site, you can definitely bring some business to your website. Serves as a platform to partner with influencers. So some of you may be working with influencers. Definitely will help build reputation and goodwill, right? We hopefully, number 7, we don't need, help to handle crisis. Some people have had crises and use social media. Just have to be very careful with that, right? Offers more meaningful insights about your customers, so you can get some analytics on there and who's hanging out on your platforms and who are following you on social media. And then helps to keep an eye on the competition, right? So look at your, as I said on my marketing plan, do competitor analysis. And this is one thing that you would look for with competitors is what are they doing on social media to the same potential customers that you have, right? So not to say let's copy them, but how are they speaking to their customers? What are they doing? Are they engaging with them? Are they posting on a regular basis? So look up 2 or 3 competitors out there and just check out their social media and see what's going on. So definitely very important. It's one of those things that, right, we do it personally and we think it's not as serious, but people do want to find us on social media, right? And do business with us that way. So it's a few more stats here on the who, what, where, what, and when. So overall, this is just as of 2025, just a little too soon in the year for 2026 numbers. So Facebook still number 1, holding strong at over 3 billion, right? YouTube actually overtook Instagram and is now 2.7. The numbers might be a little off by millions or so. You can see here the top platforms out there, still the strongest ones, right? We have a few new ones, somewhat new like Threads and Blue Sky and all of that, but these are the top ones where most people are hanging out, right? And where you should be spending your time if your customers are there. So we'll show you that. And then the reason that we use social media. So if you kind of start at the bottom, right? Of course, the main reason for social media is to be social, right? To keep in touch with friends and family, right? Filling spare time. Can anybody explain what spare time is? I don't understand what spare time is. I don't have spare time. Tell me about that spare time. Reading news stories, finding content, right? And you kind of look towards the middle, you see finding products to purchase, right? So it's not like the main thing. We don't go to social media first to let me go shopping. It's kind of call it a drive-by activity as I'm scrolling through my news feed, looking at my friends and my pages and groups are posting. I'm going to see advertising and maybe buy those cute pair of shoes that I saw scrolling on my feed, right? So definitely we're there for different reasons out there, but mostly, to keep in touch with friends and family. And while we're there, keeping in touch with them, we might do some shopping as well. And then this is overall stats, and I won't read everything on these slides. You are going to get the recording and slides from SCORE later, but just to kind of give you a few key things, right? So 41% use social media to drive revenue. 59% focus on customer service and communications through social media platforms. Almost 94% of businesses use social media platforms for various purposes. So we're actually out there using it, right? 83% of small businesses post content several times per week. So we'll talk about each platform and how often you should post on those. Okay, I'll leave the rest for later, so we're not going through all these stats. So this is by generation, and I just realized I need to update the slide as of 2026. So if you look on that upper right, Gen Z is now 14 to 29. Millennials are now 30 to 45. Gen X, we're like 46 to 61. Boomers, 62 to 80. And that silent golden greatest generation combo, 80 plus at this point. Right. So this is overall who's hanging out on social media, not we'll go specifically by platforms, but this is just overall who's hanging out. So you can see if you combine those zillennials and millennials, those are the majority of people hanging out on social media, right? We're there. Gen X is there. Boomers and above are there. But you can see if you combine those lower numbers, mostly like 35 and below, it's going to be your bulk of people hanging out on social media. Now, somebody was here that does, I think it was home care, senior care, I think when they were explaining the chat. So probably, I think it was, right. Right. So home health, there it is. Home health care, skilled nursing and therapy. So probably Carly, right? The majority of the clients, patients are probably older. Not that somebody who's younger wouldn't need home health care and skilled nursing, but probably going to be older. So this is a case of, right, let's just say 65 plus might be the majority of your business. I might be wrong. Tell me in chat if I'm wrong. And they're not going to see them as much on social media, but right? They might have family that are taking care of like finding a home health skilled nursing facility. So maybe like a Gen Xer or a millennial child or grandchild might be doing that. So you could find them on social media. So you kind of have two markets potential. So if you wanted to reach the senior who may be taking care of it themselves, you might find them, reading the newspaper or email. I'll show you that stat in a second, compared to social media. So you might, and even on the other side of things with kids, if you have a product or service, pediatrics, right? Oh, okay. So then that would make sense. So on the other side, it was just a good example, perfect timing, Carly. On the other side with kids, right? Your customers are going to be probably the parents, right? The people who are buying the service or product. So where they hang out is different. You're not looking at where the kids hang out, right? So again, you kind of cover both. They're the great example here. You cover on the the older end and the younger end. So you might have a secondary customer that you can reach in a different way than the initial customer using the product or service, right? So keep that in mind. And then email versus social media, right? So you can see here on the top left, right? Majority still 40 and below. You add those three groups together, and majority across all social media platforms, you're going to see generally 40 to 35 and below. Each platform will be a little bit different, and it drops off, as you get older. But look at email on the right. It doesn't really drop off across the board, only slightly for the 65 plus. So this is where you could reach everybody, right? Is email marketing, and email marketing has, like I think I mentioned earlier, double the ROI. For every $1 spent on email marketing, there's an average of a 40-ish dollar return on investment. Social media is about half of that, 18 to $20. So email marketing definitely has the better ROI. I'm not saying don't do social media, but email marketing is very important, and across the board, you can reach that older audience as well as a younger audience. So everybody's checking emails, right? And then what actions a brand can take that prompt customers to purchase, right? Of course, being responsive. And some of these kind of translate to in person as well, right? If I walk into a store, I want somebody to greet me. If I need help, I want somebody there to help me, right? So make sure on social media as well, if they're sending you messages, we use social media for customer service these days. Make sure somebody's reading those, right? And checking them and not leaving them. You can get notifications, right to your phone. I get those from my clients, right? Anytime there's a message that comes in, I'm on, as soon as I see it, I'm on it, right? So offering promotions, we all love deals, of course. Education content, providing that. So that's education content would be just talking about your business and your product or services, right? So providing that content, sharing interesting visuals. Definitely, definitely a visual medium. People love videos and pictures. Being funny, right? Of course, we want to be humorous. We don't want to be mean, but just have to be careful, right? Because, we're different senses of humor. We have to be careful out there because sometimes we don't have a sense of humor, right? Just be careful with that one. Offering exclusive content, providing behind the scenes content. If you have something of interest for people to see, I mean, mine would be very boring if I sat here and videoed me sitting here typing on my computer all day, right? I'd put everybody to sleep. If that's your goal, it would work. But if you have something of interest, share. People want to see like how are the products made. I see these videos all the time on Instagram and Facebook, right? Making behind the scenes content. And then this one I would stay away from, right? We don't need to trash talk competing brands. I would say there are big brands that have done it. There was, God, we're talking many years ago when Twitter first came out. You had Wendy's, I think, and Burger King did some kind of Twitter wars, knocking at each other, all in fun, and everybody knew, they weren't doing it on purpose. So they could get away with it, but we just have to be careful with we don't want to trash talk any of our competitors out there. So there was I can't remember the name of the company. They do social media content creation and posting and stuff. I haven't seen them on Facebook for a while, so maybe they crashed and burned. But their whole thing on their ads was bashing Canva, right? And just and it was and people would comment in the on the posts that it's like, can you do this without bashing Canva? Because it's like a lot of users with Canva, but that was their whole thing. Now, again, I haven't seen them come up on my algorithm for a long time on Facebook, so maybe they stop advertising or they realize that that doesn't work, right? And it's hard to like knock a big player out of the market there, but it's like if you have to bash somebody else's product to have it win them over, that could be a problem, right? Windows versus Mac from years ago. Yes, right. Yeah, definitely. The Hatfields and the McCoys, remember on AOL years ago. Facebook. So the number one platform, as we said, the king or queen of social media. Oops, sorry, I went too fast. So a few statistics, a little bit more female than male, right? As we already mentioned, it says over 2 billion people use Facebook daily, but there's 3.2 billion people registered on Facebook. General 31% of users are age 25 to 34. So there's more older people there. I'll show you that demographic in a second, but definitely still always a younger market. So I'll leave those for you later to read. And then here we are for the demographics, right? Male, female, and by ages. So if we kind of look at the 44, 45 and below is the majority. But as we see here, that 45 above, definitely in comparison, it's lower, but this is where you're going to find more of the older market in comparison to the other platforms. So you'll see it drop on Instagram. YouTube actually is pretty similar to these numbers. We'll see that stat in a moment. Right, but generally, again, 35 and below is your market. So if you do have an older audience, Facebook is where you're going to be more so than some of the other. TikTok, we'll see all those on here. Where do you find older markets? So again, email marketing might be more traditional as like social, and again, social media, as I mentioned earlier, do you have a secondary customer like the kids or the grandkids that help the seniors with that? So they're out there. I would say like boomers, right? So that are like 61 to 80, right? So I always break that down in like two decades, right? So the younger ones, right, are more of internet users, right? I say Gen X, we invented the internet. So they're closer, but maybe that 70 to 80 might not be as much, right? That are on social media and right, because they didn't, maybe embrace it. Probably, right, during COVID, right, we had a lot more older people join because it was their way of like reaching their kids and their grandkids, right? So there was like a little bit of a bump in that those generations, but overall, it's still a younger person's market. Right? And then the number of users on Facebook, as you can see here, where are we? 2026 to 256 million United States only, of course. And you can see here, like if this started in 2018, right? 2019, and you can see how the numbers have like 2020, right? First year of COVID, started to jump up. And it was interesting, right? So 2016, right after the elections, then we started to see a mass exodus from social media because of all the fake news and misinformation. People were getting kind of tired of all that. So there started to be an exodus, but then it started to bump up again because of COVID. So I thought that was interesting. So you can see here, it's not going anywhere. People are still joining it. Nobody's quiet quitting Facebook anymore. So it's only been growing over the past 5, 6, 7 years. Oop, there we go. So how often should you post per day on Facebook, right? I would say a minimum, I'd say this is per day, but I say a minimum of 3 times a week. I would say 4 at minimum. If you're only posting like once a week or once in a while when you remember to post, don't freak out, and start, oh my God, I got to go from 0 to 10, right? Start up in the number, right? If you don't post, people can't engage with you, right? It's just like opening a storefront and you kind of keep the door closed and the windows darkened and nobody can come in and see what you're doing, right? So more you're out there, the more you're out there, of course, but don't show up and post a bunch in quick succession or disappear for a long time. It does affect the algorithm, right? And Facebook has the what would say the organic reach is probably the lowest, right? About a 1 to 3% organic reach. And so what you're posting on organically, not by advertising. So, and that really has to do with how much content is on Facebook, like so compared to Instagram. So Facebook started out with friends, right? And then they added groups and company pages in one of those orders, right? And then advertising, right? Because they didn't have advertising initially. So there's so much content that your friends are posting, your groups are posting, your pages are posting, that it's impossible for Facebook to show all that content, right? So they have to start throttling it back based on what's most important to you. So what you engage with is very important. So if you like, comment, share posts, that's the only way. You have to click on something in order for Facebook to know, like, oh, Patty likes her friend Joe's cat videos because she's always liking them, so we'll keep showing Joe's content. If I was just scrolling through on my phone and like laughing at it, but I never engaged with it, he might drop off my feed, right? Because I'm like, it's not showing as the most relevant content, right? And the algorithms, you can see it now, it's like much more sophisticated where, you could start looking for, I'll just use solar power, for example. I have a client that does solar power, and I happened to be, doing a coaching session, and when I went to his Facebook feed to see what his team was posting on Facebook, and then I went to my feed as I was sitting there talking to him, and suddenly, like within minutes, my feed was filled with solar power ads, right, for all of his competitors coming up there. So it's pretty quick. Like, oh, she must be interested. She visited a solar power company page, right? So let's keep showing solar power. At least for advertising, they have that. But for your other your organic content, you have to engage with it, or your customers, of course, have to engage for them to keep seeing your content, right? So very important with Facebook. How about social media to find local customers? I need customers within a 15-mile radius. That, Mark, would have to be more advertising, right? Because if you're talking organic social media, you don't know who's local or not, who follows you. So that would be where you can reach out on or not reach out, but choose that demographics and geographics on your advertising, saying, 10-mile radius, 65 plus, or whatever that market is. But with just organic social media, there's no way, unless you can see your analytics to see your age groups, but generally it'd have to be advertising to target those markets, right? All right. Okay. And when are people engaging the most? Right. And this is Facebook. They know from their algorithm when people are engaging, meaning they're liking, commenting, sharing. So, kind of looking at this heat map, generally it's like middle of the week, middle of the day, except Facebook has this little anomaly where it's like 3 o'clock. Was it? Yeah, 3 o'clock in the morning. So, someone said maybe they're doom scrolling at 3 o'clock, can't go to sleep. Maybe the older people have insomnia. I do that, like scrolling through, going to bed, but it's the only one that has that weird anomaly. But generally, middle of the day, middle of the week. You can see Tuesday, a couple of dark hot spots there. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday would be your hottest days for engagement when people are on and, again, engaging with the content. And then the engagement rate per type of post. So you can see you're not too far off. People love reels, video content, of course, photos, and then links, status, like this is what we're doing right now, and then albums like carousels. So across the board, not too far off on there, but you can see at the very top, definitely video content is number one. Right. And then Instagram, kind of doing this backwards. I'm doing number 3 before I do number 2. We'll keep the Meta family together. There we go. I don't know what's going on with my mouse. Sorry about that. So over 2 billion users, again, the third most. Instagram drives trends among, it says 16 to 64, kind of interesting. Majority of users on Instagram fall between the ages of 18 to 24, right? So definitely younger audience. Most are in India, about equal male, female, not too far off like Facebook was. Right. 7% of US shoppers start their journey on Instagram. So people are shopping via Instagram as well. Again, not the main activity, right? We're there to look at content. And then by age group, so you can see here, if you remember against Facebook, right, those numbers jump up 45 and or below, right? 44, 45 and below. This even drops with that 35 to 45 compared to Facebook. And the numbers as you age up, 45 drop in comparison to Facebook. Not too far off. So we're hanging out there. The old folks are hanging out there, but definitely that 35 and below is going to be your main demographic there. right? And the different types of content with Instagram, right? Of course, we have posts, just general one-off posts, your carousels, which are now, I don't know how many years ago they did this, but initially when Instagram came out, I think it was like 2013, if you wanted to post like 10 parties from a picture, you had to do 10 separate posts, right? Now you can do an album of pictures and people just can swipe through them. Makes it a lot easier for content. Instagram stories. So now you have also Facebook stories. That's 24-hour content. Of course, you can save it to highlights as well. And then Reels, right? So Reels came out around 2020, right? TikTok and competitor, now YouTube Shorts, right? So definitely very popular with Reels, so long form video content here. And I would say do a mix if you can of content to see what's working and what people are engaging with, of course. And then when you, I'm going to skip this one because this one, the heat map's easier. So heat map similar to Facebook, except we don't have that weird 3 a.m. anomaly of the maybe doom scrolling, right? So middle of the week, middle of the day, it's still hot, Thursday, Friday through that 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. when people are most engaged. But try different times. See, maybe your audience is on, Fridays at 9 o'clock at night. Now, like I said, Facebook or Meta, we'll say at this point, they know their algorithms. They know when people are hanging out. And you can look on Facebook under your analytics and it will tell you, when your followers are hanging out. Generally, it follows the same pattern, right? It's not going to be much different, but you can kind of see just if you want to look at your specific audience you can go and look at that, but you'll see the same trend pretty much. Let me see here. And make sure too, we do have both chat and Q&A. So if you do have any questions, drop them in the Q&A rather than the chat, just so I can kind of distinguish questions from comments and all that. Okay. All right. So Instagram, how often you post per day? This is a little bit more. Again, 3 times a week, bare minimum. I would say 4 times per week would be bare minimum. Optimal once or twice per day. Again, don't share quick succession or disappear for weeks. Again, it does affect the algorithms that you're on. Typical, the Instagram business accounts post once a day. But again, if you're not that consistent at this point, work your way up to that, right? If you're only posting once a month, start posting once a week and then build up to that two times a week, 3 times a week. Again, you need to have people the opportunity to see you. If you're posting, I see people like, yeah, we consistently post once a month or once a week, right? And then you're gone and they don't see you for another week, right? And who knows who comes up on the algorithm at that point. So again, this is a game of the more you post, the more people are going to see your stuff. It's kind of should be basic, right? And their algorithm, right? All algorithms are different, right? So Instagram has been playing with their algorithm over the past couple of years. So it could be based on interest, how much Instagram thinks a person will like content based on previous activity, right? You can see, I know with Reels, as soon as I'm watching one video from one person, then suddenly they're on my feed all the time. They're just assuming you like that person's content. You're going to keep liking that person's content, right? So have to be careful, like watching them too long and having them come up if you don't like them. Timeliness, how recent the post is, relationship, counts a person engages with on a regular basis. So there's a lot of different factors when it comes to the algorithm, and it changes all the time, right? So it used to be a chronological view. They've changed it there's maybe 2-3 years ago at this point to following and favorites. You can have it switch back to chronological view. That's how everything was back in the day. Facebook started, you just see stuff as people post it. Now it could be a lot different based on all these algorithms. So just the key is don't freak out about the algorithms, right? Just keep posting consistently on a regular basis, right? To make sure you're out there. And then YouTube, number 2. Okay. So a lot of us hanging out on YouTube, over 2.5 billion active users, right? YouTube engages 46% of all internet users. 31% of the global population. Is that crazy? Over 1 billion hours of YouTube content watched on TVs daily, right? So 46% of internet users access YouTube at least once a month, a little bit more male than female on here. I'll show you and you have to know, like Baby Shark holds almost 14 billion views globally, right? Little fact you probably didn't even need to know, but now everybody's going to have that earworm with Baby Shark. Okay, so who's hanging out by age? You can see here, right? It's still most the majority if you add in those 45 below altogether. And it does, similar to Facebook, the numbers do jump up for that older audience. Everybody's kind of checking out YouTube out here. And then these are shorts, right? So there's regular long form video content. YouTube Shorts started around 20, I think they soft launched around 2021. Definitely a lot less users. You can see here on YouTube Shorts in the millions. As of this year, just over, getting close to 200 million users. But compare it to Facebook, Instagram, and you have 2 billion, 3 billion. And these are just for the shorts, not the long form. Obviously, that's the 2.5 billion users. Does anybody here in the room use YouTube Shorts? Say yes in chat or raise your hand. I'm curious, anybody using it? I have a few. Do you find that you're getting more impressions, reaches, likes, etc., than say some of the other platforms? I'm just curious if you have. Perfect. No, you're not. No, you're not on YouTube Shorts, or no, you're not getting more reach. Sometimes yes. So given that, a couple years ago, already 2026 now, I had a client, and she does chair yoga and floor yoga for online for an older audience, kind of my 55 plus. And she has a lot of YouTube content, just long form content of her chair yoga and all that stuff. And she started doing shorts content, and she noticed that her viewers or views had jumped way up because there just wasn't as many people so on there. So your content was seen more. You're getting more impressions than you were previously. Yes, and you're getting, oh, so sorry, Irene says she is getting reach on shorts. So if you're doing short form content, TikToks, Reels, you should just, create it, put it on all three if your audience is there, right? So a little bit older audience here might be looking at shorts, but again, in comparison to TikTok and Instagram or Facebook Reels, I would say if you have the content, post on Instagram or YouTube as well, right? Most popular categories: YouTube Shorts, right? Video, games, movies and television, sports, pets and animals, home DIY and crafts, food and drink categories. Interesting. And there we go. So I'm going backwards here. And then just a few more stats on it. So YouTube Shorts are viewed over 70 billion times every day. 2 billion users on shorts. Again, we're talking to shorts. Overnight, it's probably numbers jumped up already. Might be over this number now. Over 910 million shorts have been posted to date. Engagement rates are pretty similar, a little tiny bit higher than TikTok and Reels. You can see here 5.91% compared to 5.75%. Right? YouTube Shorts, between 50 to 60 seconds, earn the most views. Right? I'd say yes, there's tons of YouTube content that's longer, right? But just be mindful of your audience. And it's like, can you do something in a shorter video, right? Because we have short attention span, we have limited time. Unless it's something I really need to watch a 20-minute video to get the whole gist of it, as opposed to like a 60-second video, right? We want to see shorter form content, right? Let's see, how long is the runtime of a YouTube short? So generally about 60 seconds. I think you can do 90 seconds now. So generally lower, but between 50 and 60 gets the most views. So keeping them short, keep your shorts short, right? That's why they called shorts, right? And then X or Twitter, whatever we want to call it these days, right? Is anybody using X for their social media marketing? Right? I know it's changed quite a bit since the new owner took over it. 535 million monetizable active users. 12th most popular platform, small, 106 million in the US. All right, so probably use a little bit more B2B than you would have some of the other platforms. Definitely a place for news sources. Just depends on what you're looking for. People do advertise on Twitter, maybe get some business, but I see more B2B, even though I think I bought a t-shirt or something off of Twitter as well. So it could be a little direct to consumer as well. I get more views than I have followers on YouTube. So your content is being discovered out there, right? Beyond your followers. So it's getting pushed out to everybody, which is good, right? So that helped hopefully build your subscriber base or followers on YouTube, right? Sorry, I went backwards here. So in this one, you can see almost 61% male to 30, 40%. So they'll say 60-40 on that compared to the other ones that were pretty close. So a little bit more male here, or a lot more male. sorry, this mouse is too sensitive. By age, just interesting how it jumps up really that 25 to 34. I always saw it as an older audience, so it's kind of or increased recently. But you can see here that 35 and above, still in comparison to the lower, like those young alpha, right? Young zillennials and alpha now are not hanging out on Twitter as much, not their platform. So it definitely is skews higher than the other platforms. Right. And then I don't think this has a heat map, but generally the best times are during the week. It says during lunch hour. So probably because it's a little bit more B2B news sources, it definitely is more heavy during the week. Worst day Saturday and Sunday. Right. We kind of take a break from all that news activity. Right. During COVID, because I was heavy ex Twitter user. For news sources, during COVID it didn't matter, right? It didn't matter what day it was. We were home, shut down, and whatever it was, like whatever day, Friday, who knows what day, right? But it's definitely gone back to kind of its during the week, and there's some activity still on the weekend, but just not as much there. Okay. And this kind of applies not just to Twitter, but I know that you can, like for example, I can post on Instagram and then just say, oh, have it post over to Facebook, right? I would say don't do any of that. Have it automatically post, especially between Facebook and Instagram. There's a couple of reasons for that, right? So this was the experience like back in 2017 where I had a client that posted on Instagram and it would automatically post over to Facebook or sorry, to Twitter. And you can see the experience is not that good because in order to see the content, you had to click over to Instagram. Now, if I'm hanging out on Twitter, I don't want to have to go out to see content, right? So now, of course, this was before you could post content, post pictures and all that. It was all text back then. But between Facebook and Instagram to Facebook, there's a couple of reasons you wouldn't want it to auto post over. So one is with Instagram, right? You cannot have a live link in the caption. I mean, you can type www.whatever.com, but it won't turn into a live link. So you have to kind of put see link in bio. So that would translate or, go right over to Facebook saying see link in bio, which isn't really a thing on Facebook. I mean, you kind of have a bio, but we don't do that. So it wouldn't transfer over to a live link when you're doing that. And then also Instagram has some specific Instagram hashtags that some of you may be using. So like I say, I have a restaurant client, so we use foodies of Instagram, Insta food, eating for the Instas, a bunch of foodie ones. So if you're using those specific Instagram, you wouldn't want them to go over to Facebook. So there are ways to like multi-post, like on Meta, if you're using Meta, you can go to the business suite and post up there and you can tweak it per platform. So you can choose toggle between Facebook and Instagram and like, okay, change Facebook to be a live link. And then on Instagram, change it to say see link in bio, take off the Instagram hashtags for the Facebook post. So you want to be specific. A lot of the scheduling tools, I use one called, I'll show you later, called Metricool. I can post to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google all at once, and then just tweak it per platform. So each one has little specific requirements. And also just make sure if you are going to do it, make sure it's actually posting over. I hear that all the time. And as I'm talking to potential clients and clients, I'm like, I go over to Facebook and there's no posts. And they're like, oh, I thought it was just posting from Instagram. And it's like, nope, you haven't posted here at all. So some might have been a disconnect. So it's better to not connect anything, just, do the tweaks in a scheduling tool rather than have it just automatically go over. So hopefully that makes sense, right? And then Snapchat, kind of not actually the baby of the family here now is a couple of newer ones, but still Snapchat, one of the popular category or platforms, definitely a much younger audience going to 13 to 17, all up to 35. And it drops off that 35 and above. Okay, so I think this one, 443 daily active users, and this is 2024. So it's gone up a little. None of these numbers have jumped dramatically. 89% of Snapchat users also use Instagram. So if this is kind of your audience, again, if you have kids as your primary customer, right? Of course, their parents are going to be the ones made. Depends on the product. If it's something the kids use directly, like think of back in the day, like cereal, like we would go and like get us this cereal, or hey, mom and dad, buy us this toy or the latest video game or whatever. So if it's something like you have tutoring services for kids, something that the parents would be more likely to, purchase for their kids, this probably wouldn't be a thing with Snapchat because the parents aren't necessarily there as much as the kids are. So it's products the kids would see and go, yeah, give me this, right? Give me your credit card, mom and dad. I need to purchase this item, right? And when they're on, so it says best times to post 10 p.m. to 1 a.m., but they're generally on all day, any day of the week, should be at school, right? going to sleep, doing their homework, but they're generally on all the time. Okay. And then Pinterest. Okay. Anybody here using Pinterest? Raise your hand or say yes in chat. Got any Pinterest users? No. Okay, we've got no's. Okay, and someone said they're having connectivity issues. You should get the record. You will get the recording in slides, so hopefully it will. You can replay it, Dardana. So Pinterest, right? 537 million users, so much smaller in comparison to the big three, so to speak. Definitely more female than male. You can see 70 to 30. I would say when Pinterest first came out, it was probably like 99.9% female. It tended to be mostly weddings, babies, food, kind of the female, categories, you can say, but it definitely has changed. This was before even you could advertise on Pinterest. I was on Pinterest. So definitely has changed a little bit here. I'll give you that. I'll leave the rest for you later. Number one pin category is home design inspiration. Okay, this hasn't changed, even though the stat shows here is a 2021. It's still the same. I'll show you the top 10 in a second. Right, more than 3 or 4 out of 4, 77% of weekly pinners have discovered a new brand or product on Pinterest. But when they search, they're in the discovery phase, they're searching, they search for unbranded. They're not necessarily coming here and searching for brands, right? So they might find like perfume. I'm like looking for perfume, and then they see the brands, but they don't come here looking for the brands. All right. So these are the top 10 pin categories. As I said, home design, women's fashion, health and fitness, weddings, party, travel. So it doesn't change too much. Maybe technology is a newer one. But depending on your business, right? So some of these may or may not make sense for you, right? You might not be in home design or weddings and parties. So I'll say, for example, I worked with a lot of wineries, right? So we would put up content, obviously food and drink, right? The wineries, but then people travel to wine country. So let's say, hey, we're in, central coast of California. Let's show all the different travel opportunities to get them over to come visit the winery, right? Weddings, if they have weddings at their event or party venues, etc. Food, obviously the food and drink, maybe home design, women's fashion wouldn't fit. But I worked for a credit union many years ago. I was actually the email marketing manager there, but I was the one female. This is going back to 2013. I was the one female in the marketing department at the time. And they're like, well, let Patty take over Pinterest, even though we had a social media manager, a guy. So we made these categories work for a credit union, right? So the purpose of a bank or credit union is to get share of wallet, as we call it. We want to sell you money, right? Get a loan, get our credit cards, get a mortgage, all of that. But of course, we want to save our members money, right? Our banking customers are members of the credit union. So I would post things like, how to save money for your family with food and drink. I think our top pinned category was weddings, budget wedding ideas, how to save money on your reception gifts or whatever, buying a discount bridal dress. So we based all of the categories based on money, saving money and budgeting and all that because we were in the money game, right? So it may or may not work for your business. Right. And this is interesting. Worst days are during work hours. So people are pinning, doing things more in the evening, right? Maybe after dinner, putting the kids to bed, etc. The men that are on there as well tend to be during later in the day. Best days, weekends to post on here, right? And then TikTok, right? A little bit newer on the market. So TikTok came out around 2020 as well to be kind of a competitor. Obviously, we already had Instagram Reels out there. So where are we here? 47% of users trust product recommendations from celebrities or influencers. So people do shop on TikTok, right? Users age 35 to 44 have grown by 3 percentage points, while age 18 to 24 have decreased by 10%. It's 22. So that hasn't changed as of these last couple of years. 86% are aware of TikTok Shop, but trust in the seller is lower, right? Because unfortunately, there's a lot of shady people out there doing shady things all over the place. So we have to be careful with, who we're purchasing from as well. So there definitely might be a trust factor based on other people getting burned from previous orders and stuff. So. And here's the age groups again, mostly that 35 and below. And you can see it does drop off when you're starting to go to 45 and above. They're still, like I said, in comparison to Facebook and Instagram, not too far off, right? We're still there, but you're going to be the majority 35 and below. So give you an example, I had a client, I use this example in my email marketing class, and she um, has a product. It's a collagen creamer, and her initial conversation with her is that her audience, she thought, was all women 20 and above, like 20 to 100, right? And I was like, I had to narrow her down, like, well, based on the ingredients in the collagen creamer, really fit an older market, like women 45 and above, maybe in menopause. And she was doing Facebook ads, which fits that market. And she goes, I did really well, but I stopped. And just when I was this like 2022, so TikTok is gaining popularity, she decided to jump on that bandwagon and start doing TikTok ads, and they didn't really work out. Yes, there's the 35 and below, but then she had to realize her audience base was not 35 and below, it was more 45 and above. So really understanding, like, just because it's a trend and everybody's doing TikTok, if your audience is not there, what's the point? Right. So me can try it, and see, but I, make sure that you're not spending all your time on a platform that's, not where your customers are hanging out. Right. So do we have B2B people in here? Any B2B, business to business in here? Raise your hand, say yes in chat. And if you are B2B, put in the chat what you are, what you do. 360 produce sales, normally use LinkedIn. Okay, perfect. We have one. There we go, B2B, media. Okay, so we have some here. And some of you might be crossover. So there could be some B2C crossover. So example, my solar power client, right? So on Facebook and Instagram, solar power for the home. On LinkedIn, solar commercial, right? So he has both. Wouldn't be appropriate to put home space solar on LinkedIn. You can put the commercial over on those platforms, LinkedIn, or Instagram and Facebook, but the other way right there. So it looks like we have a lot of LinkedIn people. So 80% of B2B social media leads are generated through LinkedIn. That means 4 out of 5 leads come from LinkedIn for B2B. So very important platform if you are B2B to be here. It definitely is the top channel for B2B. Facebook, I would say, is still a little bit lower. I don't think it's that close. Twitter, definitely B2B, but you can see here like Instagram, YouTube are not necessarily B2B as much. Not saying as a B2B business, you can't post things on YouTube and show them like you have maybe a product video or something or a service video, perhaps. But again, LinkedIn is going to be your gold, right, to get leads. And over 1 billion users, right? And I'll show you the demographic, a little bit more male than female out there. Um, and I like this stat, it doesn't have to do with business, but 7 people are hired every minute on LinkedIn. And there's 9,000 job applications submitted every minute on LinkedIn. So big number, right? On 9,000 applications, 7 people hired every minute there on LinkedIn. So of course, on one side of the aisle is the career, the jobs and job seekers and people hiring. And of course, the other side is the business side of things, right? Now, for age, it's a little bit different than the other platforms. I kind of share this with a caveat, right? So, of course, you can see the numbers pretty much skew the same as the other platforms, mostly 35 and below here, not so much on the 55 plus, right? Because we think like we come here potentially, 25, I think it's like 24 years ago when LinkedIn started, might have come here to look for a job, right? As you're younger, get in the job market, right? And then maybe retiring out of the market. But, right, we don't come to LinkedIn to look for people by age, right? We're looking for people by who they are. So I have a client, she's a transportation logistics business. She's a founder, CEO of this multi-million dollar business, 80 plus employees now. And would you care what age that she is? Would it matter, right? If she's 55, 45, 35, right, 25? If you needed to reach a CEO of a transportation logistics business, right? She's 36. But it wouldn't matter, right? So for with LinkedIn, you just want to reach that CEO of that company, right? So don't have to worry too much about the ages there, just who they are. Sorry, my mouse. There we go. So just a few stats here. I'll just read a few off here. You'll get these later. So 58 million companies are listed on LinkedIn. 4 out of 5 are the decision drivers. Now you might not be dealing directly with the decision driver, but they're there if you need to. Like she would be the decision driver of her business there. So you definitely would want to reach out to her. 73% of buyers are more interested in salespeople who reach out to them via LinkedIn. That's kind of interesting. All right. So 65 million decision makers there. Content, just read a few of the highlights. So definitely delivers higher organic results, especially for B2B. This is where you're going to have longer form content, right? Because this is where we come to seek industry insights, your subject matter expertise. We need more information from you. It's not like I'm going on Facebook, I see a cute pair of shoes show up on my feed. I'm like, oh, those are cute. Buy them, I'm done, right? It's impulse purchase. I don't need a dissertation about the pair of shoes. I don't need to know the owner, right? It's just we have to build relationships and knowledge and know, like, and trust. So this is where you're going to have longer form posts as well here. Okay, so 60% of LinkedIn users actively seek industry insights. Definitely businesses that post weekly see 2 times more growth and engagement. And again, you don't have to post as much as crazy as Instagram and Facebook to get traction. It could be just a couple times per week would be good. But again, being consistent out there. It's all about consistency. So to give you an example, last year, beginning of the year, I scheduled out for the entire year 1 post per week for LinkedIn. It was my Tuesday tips. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you'd see those. And so I was planning on doing more content, but had a lot of stuff going on personally with my parents and major illnesses and stuff. So the whole year was kind of like I didn't get to post anything. I dropped my newsletter. But what's interesting is because every single week, because it's already scheduled out, I was posting at least 1 post and maybe some random posts. I went to an event or something and put up some pictures, but generally just that one consistent post. And I'd have people say, oh, I see you on LinkedIn all the time. And I'm like, well, I'm really not. I said, I'm not prolific, but I'm consistent. Right. So that just that 1 post. Now this year, I'm like, okay, I'm getting ahead of the game. Hopefully nothing happens like last year, but getting ahead of the game. I have 4 posts per week. All right, so I have my Marketing Monday tip, my Tuesday blogs. I do a weekly blog now. I have my Wednesday webinar post, and then a Thursday question thing. And so I'm all scheduled out for the entire year, and I'm starting to see traction right away. It's like people have reached out and said, "Oh, I'm seeing your content on LinkedIn." So it's working to be more consistent, still consistent, but now prolific as well. So I would start out making sure you're posting consistently on both on your profile and your company page to get that. Again, doesn't happen if I'm not showing up, people are going to forget about me. Right. So even that 1 post last year was getting traction, not as much as now posting more, but definitely getting more traction. Right. If you wanted to advertise on LinkedIn, right, 15% of the world's population can be reached. That would cost a little bit if you wanted to reach them. As a result of LinkedIn ad exposure, businesses' purchase intent increased by 33%. Definitely hyper targeting is more successful anywhere, right? You definitely want to get right to your customers, which you can. Say I want to reach, CEOs of transportation logistics businesses. I can find them directly on LinkedIn where I wouldn't be able to find them directly on other social media platforms, right? Okay. So how should you participate on LinkedIn? LinkedIn wants you to participate in a lot of ways, right? Just as if you're networking in person, right? This is a networking platform, right? Forget the other side now, career, job side of it. But this is a networking where you build relationships. So you're going to, of course, connect to people, hopefully your ideal customers, follow company pages, get to know who they are as a company. You're going to post up content. You're going to engage, right? Like, comment, repost. They want to see that you're reciprocal. I'm not just posting and running, right? I'm engaging with other people's content, making comments, building that relationship with them because they're doing it online and not in person. Create a newsletter. I'll talk about that in a minute, which is a blog. Participate in groups. A lot of leads are generated through groups. So whether they're in your industry or industries you want to do business with. So in other words, right? Network. That's all of this is networking. It's showing your subject matter expertise, building relationships with your potential clients or collaborators or whatever. So, kind of, I know it's a lot of work. I'm already giving you guys a lot of work with B2B people. but all of this will help. All of this will matter, right? And what is networking, right? Just a dictionary definition I have here, just intentional and purposeful act of building and nurturing professional connections, relationships, and collaborations, right? So it's a lot, it's not just like, here's my card and let's do not just transactional, right? So to speak, right? You don't want to be too transactional here. And why you should network, of course, to find new clients, maybe find new hires if you're looking for them, expand those opportunities and collaborations, learn from others, right? So very important to network. It's key to business. And don't be afraid to network, right? So whether it's in person or online. So I hear this more, and when I say it's not spamming, that refers more to online. I hear this all the time, like, oh, I hate LinkedIn because I just connect people and they start spamming me with messages. Okay, so I want you to take that out of your vocabulary at this point, right? We're not spamming each other, we're making connections. Now, some people might be more, I'll just say sales forward than others, right? Some people who are natural born salespeople, they got to meet their goals, they dial for dollars. They're going to be more forward about their messaging, right? As soon as you connect, they send a message like, hey, let me tell you all about my marketing services. Why don't we schedule a call? I can get you 1 million leads in 3 days, like, whoa, right? Where I'm like, hey, can we build a relationship? Like, I would be more reciprocal to them and say, hey, tell me about who you serve, so see if I can help you with that, but I can't hate on people who are like that, right? Hey, they're out there to do business and get in the game. That might be kind of icky to some of us who are maybe not as sales forward, right? I don't want to use the term aggressive, but I just want to say we're not. So we look at it as like, oh, they're spamming us. But just as if we met in person, right? You want to treat it the same, right? So if we meet in person, let's just say all of us are in a mixer together right now, there's all 93 of us, and we're mixing and mingling in the room. And let's just say I'm going to pick somebody out of the audience. Okay, Celeste. Um, Celeste and I walk up to each other. We don't know each other. And I ask Celeste, oh, what do you do? And she starts explaining what she does. And then I'm assuming that after she's finished, I'll explain what I do, maybe hand her my card. But as soon as she finishes and I start talking, she puts her hand up in my face and says, no, don't spam me. Right now, I know Celeste, you wouldn't do that. None of you would, but it would be the same. Like you're shutting the person down. Like, don't spam, don't tell me about your business, right? So same thing online. That's the way we connect with somebody. The other person accepts the connection, and then whether again you're a little bit more sales forward about, hey, let me tell you all about what I do, and let's schedule a call, right? And again, that's okay. Your approach might be different, of course, but it's all about we're just networking and telling people what we do and selling our products and services. We should not be afraid to network. It's part of marketing, right? Telling people what you do. If you're shy about networking, whether it's online or in person, or you're afraid to share your information, I'm like, why are you in business? You're not sharing that information, right? We're all different. Some people are more comfortable with networking than others, but with LinkedIn, again, this is how we share information. Again, and again, we can't hate on the people who are a little bit more sales forward, okay? But don't be afraid to network. And let's network here, right? We're not going to break out into rooms, but share your information, share your LinkedIn profile link, your company page, website, whatever you feel comfortable with, whatever you would share on your business card. You never know who's in the room, right? You have 93 business owners, might be somebody who want to do business with you or collaborate or connect. So share, you'll get the chat file to click on all those links. But again, you shouldn't be afraid to network when you're in a room full of people who could be potential clients, connectors, and collaborators. So in the chat, share your links. Okay. And then as far as the LinkedIn presence, right? So this always gets confusing for some. It's similar to Facebook, right? The structure of it. So we all start out with a profile, which is us, right? Our name, our professional CV, right? Our resume. So our job experience, our education, our volunteer work, right? Should be us, right? We should only have one of these profiles because we are only one person. Okay, just like Facebook, you should only have one as a person. Of course, that's more personal information. And then you can have as many company pages as you want that are managed under your profile. So you can't go to LinkedIn and just go set up a company page because it has to be managed by a person, similar to Facebook, right? You set up a profile and you can set up company pages under that profile and manage. You can invite people to manage your pages. Like you can have me, add me as an admin and I can manage your company page for you. But again, one profile in one company page. Okay. So now this is a thing that comes up all the time. What if I have a couple different situations going on? So let's just say I have a full-time job at Goldman Sachs. I'm a financial analyst and I'm starting my own business coaching. Okay, and I'm building that. And I might, maybe eventually leave Goldman Sachs to be a business coach, but Goldman Sachs probably, not really wanting to see that I have a side gig and all my fellow employees and maybe the employer is on my LinkedIn profile. So I can't, how do I hide it? So I say if you have some different situations, you kind of have to pick a lane, right? So you don't do an alias, don't set up a second profile that only your business coach people would be under, because it'd be confusing having you're not two people, right? You're only one person. So it is a little difficult to be multiple things going on, unless it doesn't matter. Goldman Sachs is like, we don't care if you're also a business coach on the side, as long as you're not, competing against what you do. I'm a financialist here and a business coach here. The two don't meet up, right? So you have to be careful, but check and see also, because I see this all the time, right? Some of us have multiple profiles because maybe you set one up under a company or forgot your password and you set up another profile. Put your name in there and see if you have other profiles out there. And if you have access to the email that you use for it, go in there and delete it, right? Because you don't want people to be confused if I'm looking up your name and I'm like, which profile are they using, right? Might be obvious if one doesn't look like you posted on it for a while, but just make sure you have one. And the profile should only be used for as a person. I see people who use the profile and they set it up as a company page, right? Because they're thinking, I don't want people to know who I am. So linkedin.com/in slash your name should be a profile, a person. Okay, you shouldn't be using that as a company page. You should change it to be a person because people connect to people. Okay, if we follow company pages, but we're not connecting to somebody as a business, we're connecting them as a person. We want to know who build that relationship. Okay. Company pages, you can have as many as you want. Again, managed under your profile. Okay. All right. So LinkedIn profile, just a few tips here, right? Just make sure everything is filled out, right? You have a nice profile headshot, right? Under your profile, you want to be your headshot. Nice, clean, clear. Shouldn't be you in a picture of your dog or your kids or your family vacation or a bathroom selfie. Don't do that. I haven't seen those on LinkedIn, but I've seen some bad profile pictures. There's plenty of tools out there. There's AI tools to help you build headshots. If you have some good selfie pictures, you can build some beautiful business headshots out there if you don't want to hire, any photographers out there, but plenty of opportunities to build some good pictures out there. Make sure you have your banners and everything filled out as well. All right. And then as far as your connections, in case you're not familiar with first, second, and third connections, right? So your first connections are people you're directly connected. One of you invited the other accepted. Second level are people you're not directly connected, but you have mutual connections. Okay. And then third is nobody knows anybody and you can connect to them. There's no mutual connections. All right. So those are the types of connections there. And then your about section. So very important. This is like driving customers to you. We have a tendency to write them as if we have a resume, right? Like I have 25 years experience. I have cross-functional teams, resource planning, management core, multiple projects, blah, blah, blah. Right. So if it's reading like a resume of here's your list of services, but it doesn't tell you like who do you serve? Who are your customers? What are the pain points they potentially have? And what are your solutions? Right. And what's the potential outcome? So that should be at the top, right? Not like I have 25 years experience and here's my revenue and profit growth, productivity optimization, business development. Unless you're a business coach, business or do operations and stuff like that. Actually, I just talked to somebody who had like perfect about. She did exactly what I just described. Who she serves, what kind of problems they have, pain points they have. I think it was like, let me help you find more profit in your business, right? It's like first thing, like, ooh, everybody wants more profit, right? A lot of times the profit is lost because you have screwed up processes and procedures. So she did it as a positive to start, like, let me help you find more profit. But of course, I'm going to have to dig in and see if you have processes and procedures that are costing you profit, right? So there are some ways to do it. Here's one. So if you're looking at this, it's kind of a dumb question, right? Obvious question. Looking at this about section, what do you think this person does? Somebody put it in chat. Again, I know it's a dumb question. All right. So if you're reading this, brand strategy, professional, develop transformative brands and spearheading, right? Marketing. But what was interesting, this was some random profile I came across, and he had this in his about section, but his banner at the top of his profile had a banner that he does pest control, right? So it's like I was confused. Like, is he pest control company? He's not doing marketing for pest control. He actually owned a pest control business, but he had this here. So maybe his previous life, he was a marketing brand manager, etc. But now it's like, well, who are you? What do you do? So if you're a pest control company, put that in there, right? And probably for commercial use, finding pests in a business, of course. But again, check your about section to make sure it really speaks first to who you help, right? What are their problems? What are their pain points? What are your solutions? And what are the outcomes that are expected? Okay. And you can do that for your pitch as well, right? And then articles and newsletters. So anybody here already doing LinkedIn articles or newsletters? Raise your hand, say yes in chat. And if you're not and you're like, I don't know what the heck you're talking about, Patty, I'm not surprised. Okay, we have one, a couple, saw some hand raised. So what this is, right? Technically, they're blogs. It's not a newsletter like you'd see on like email marketing. It's, here's all the things happening in our company. It's a blog. So technically, they're the same thing. Okay, so articles and newsletters are the same thing. And again, a blog, but logistically they're a little different. Okay, so you can go to this right article here. You can publish an article or newsletter from your company page or your profile. Okay, so you can choose, or both. I do both. Okay, and then you come here. Now, when you first go to this page here, this would be an article. So articles are one off article blog, right? And they post to the news feed, and then your followers or connections will see it in their news feed. That's okay, it's good. And this is where you would put the article, but also under newsletter, right? So you can see here under the manage, you can create a newsletter here. I put in mine's called marketing news tips and hacks, right? So different, technically, again, the same thing, but it's logistically where it's more important. And there is a little extra criteria for doing a newsletter versus article. So everybody can do a newsletter now from your profile. Doesn't matter how many connections you have. Okay. But under your company page, you must have over 150 followers. Okay. On there. Again, connections on your profile are now lower. So everybody should be able to see it no matter how many customers you have, or sorry, connections you have. You should also have posted some original content. So, meaning don't like post on your profile and repost over to your company page. They don't see that as original content. It's kind of like invisible to LinkedIn because it's just reposting. And then obviously make sure you're not doing anything naughty on LinkedIn to have them knock you off of LinkedIn. So there is a little extra criteria with the newsletter. Okay. So where it shows up is the most important. So as soon as you publish an edition of the newsletter, it will be notified in the notifications inbox, right? So you can see here new from Kalika Yap and Kalika Yap newsletter, The Thief of Joy, right? The very first time Kalika posted her newsletter, there was a subscribe button there. So the first time I saw it, I saw a subscribe button. I can click it right there, and people subscribe to it where you don't subscribe to articles, right? So you do have subscribers on newsletters, but this is where is important, right? I say this is almost like having a fake email address or a list because it's like showing up right where we're probably going first when we first log on. I'm looking for all the little red dots of new notifications and followers and etc. Right. So much more powerful. It also will post over to your news feed. It will create a social media post. But this is where it's important to have a newsletter. Now, if you have less than 150 followers under your company page right now, what I would do is do the newsletter under your profile, and then under your company page, do an article and start building those followers. So everybody share your company page link in here so you can get some more followers in there and get your numbers up. Then switch it once you're over the 150 and you've posted a few pieces of content at least, then switch it over to a newsletter. You can even recycle. I mean, if as long as they're timely still, recycle those articles and recreate them as newsletters. So then you already have some content out there. And this way people are going to see it right in their notifications inbox again. So very important feature. It helps build again that subject matter expertise to do a blog, right? Putting out content there. What I do for my blog, right? You're going to still put it on your website. So my blog goes on my website, right? I do a social media post over to Facebook, Instagram, linking to my website. Come over to LinkedIn. I do my newsletters, right? And then I also email out my blog to my list, right? I think that's it. That's all the places. So everywhere it's synced up. I'm hitting everybody at all corners. I have their information at, right? So making sure they see it at least one of those places. So if you have blog content, come to LinkedIn and do newsletter content, or at least articles until you can do LinkedIn. So hopefully that makes sense. Hold on, let me see if I have any questions about that. Are articles something you have to have a paid membership? No, free account. Doesn't matter. Yeah, you don't need to pay for LinkedIn. Everybody has access. Again, you won't see the create newsletter feature if you have less than 150 followers, but you'll see it under the connections. Okay. So yeah, not a paid thing. It's just something that they didn't really advertise. They don't really like say I kind of a hidden feature on there. Can you take a blog post on your business website, copy and paste it on LinkedIn posts? Is there an SEO advantage yeah, I mean, same thing. Exactly. That's what I described. I'll take it first, post it on my website, right? It could be the exact same copy, everything. And then post it over to your newsletter rather than doing LinkedIn doesn't really like you linking out on your posts. So before they had newsletters, I'd be like, okay, I have my blog on my website. I'll put up a post saying, hey, go check out my blog, and it links out to my website. They want the content to be within LinkedIn. Also, they make it more discoverable. If you have articles or newsletters that get a lot of traction, it might be discovered, where they wouldn't necessarily do that with your post that links out to your website blog. All right, so definitely important. Do both. Do post them everywhere. Okay, good question. And let me go here. Just get rid of those. Let's see. Any tips for reaching out to people visiting Los Angeles, FIFA, Super Bowl, how to find them or get them to find you? Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I'm not in Los Angeles. We have all these big events coming up. If you're just talking like the attendees, right, coming out, the tourists who are going to be coming out to Los Angeles here, definitely posting up on social media. If you are a local business, I know that there's a bunch of potential apps and things that people are building, especially for the Olympics. That would be, say, for example, as they come into LAX and they have an app with all the activities and local businesses and things. LA Tourism Board might have something like that, so you might check that out. So there are some tools out there that are going to be out, apps and things that are going to be out there. But I would just say post regularly, show that you're in Los Angeles, and pay attention to what all the apps and things are going to be happening as well. So we have a lot going on here coming up. All right. Okay. So, and then here you can see, right, people can subscribe to my newsletter. I have whatever, how many subscribers. And then I can click on that number and see everybody who subscribed. What I do, like I have first, second, and third, I will go through periodically and connect to my seconds and thirds. Right. So I'm deepening my relationship with them there. Right. They're already subscribing. I'm like, let me connect with them, and then they can see all of my content and, pay attention more to my content as well. All right, and then best times to post. This has to do with either posts or the newsletters. LinkedIn knows their algorithm of when people are most engaging with content, so you can try out different times, but generally they know like Mondays at 11 a.m. is the most engaging time, or Thursdays at 2. Try different times. You can schedule things out. You don't have to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday to post your newsletter or your post. Use a scheduling tool for that. Right. And then how to find leads on LinkedIn. It's another important thing to do, right? Definitely keep your profile updated, add connections to your network. You can look at who viewed you, former clients, maybe connections of your first connections. You can look, some of them you can kind of click on their connections if they have it set to open. Do searches for specific people or companies. This is the power of LinkedIn. We can find those specific English professors at universities or HR directors. This is where we can directly find those specific people. Or if I want to do business, say with Apple, I can go to Apple and find the marketing manager or whatever, event planner or something, right? Follow your current clients and prospects, write and ask for recommendations, join groups. Like I said, a lot of leads happen in groups. Definitely be reciprocal. Celebrate other people's accomplishments, their birthdays, right? Showing that you're paying attention and caring, right? Share, make sure you're sharing your social media following everywhere on your emails. I'm sorry, I'm going backwards here. So making connections, right? Searching for somebody. So I'm looking for mechanical engineers, right? So I can just type in mechanical engineer. We'll pull up anybody who has a title of mechanical engineer. I can send a note. On the free version, you only get about, I think, a half a dozen per month to send with a note. But use those on the paid version, you get more. But use those, sparingly, of course, if you're on the free version. It's like maybe he's like, oh, I met you at a conference or whatever. Doesn't necessarily make that big of a difference based on a study that was done. Half with a message, half without was about the equal amount of people who accepted the connection. So don't panic if you can't do that. Okay, and then you can do what's called a Boolean search if you want to narrow it down even further. So let's just say I'm looking for owners of environmental engineering firms, right? So I put in quote environmental engineering because I want to bring those two words together and quote owner. Okay, you can see here on the right, it pulled up anybody who has a title owner, environmental engineering in the title of their business, right? If I just put environmental and engineering, I might pull up anybody who's called engineering or anything environmental. I'm trying to like narrow it down. Like I don't want the marketing managers or the IT directors or the janitor or whatever at environmental engineering firms. But keep in mind, right, we call ourselves different things, right? So might be an owner. I could be the founder, the CEO, the president. So you might have to do a couple different Boolean searches to find that top person. Not everybody calls themselves an owner. Or in this case here, Los Angeles, right? We have Los Angeles Unified School District. We call it different things. Some of us say LAUSD, LA Unified School District, spelled all out, or I always called it LA Unified. My mom's a retired teacher with LA Unified. So you want to do a couple different searches because it wouldn't pull up if you had LAUSD, right? And you put in LA Unified School District. And again, think about those different titles. I might be a senior partner at a law firm, a president, executive director. Kind of have to do a couple different searches. On the paid version, like LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you can do multiple searches at once. You can check the boxes, put in CEO, president, executive director, all in one search. So on the paid version, you have to do a couple different Boolean searches. Okay. And then should you pay for LinkedIn? It depends. I mean, if you are strictly B2B and you spend most of your time here to find those leads, you might want to pay. A couple of the main features, the main differences are you can send what are called InMails. So those are direct DMs. On the free version, you can only DM somebody if you're already connected. But let's just say you want to connect with somebody and they're not accepting the connection request for some reason, you can direct DM them. So on the premium version, you get 15. On the Sales Navigator Core, you get 50 per month. There's more advanced searches and filters on here that you wouldn't have on the paid version. The Navigator kind of works almost like a CRM in a way. It's not really a CRM, but you can group leads together, save lead searches and stuff and, group them together. So a little bit more advanced stuff you can do for sales tools if that's something that would be important to you, right? And you do get a free month. Excuse me, either way. So if you want to try out Premium or Navigator, just make sure that month is when you're going to really try it out, get that 130-day trial and see if it's something that you would utilize. So that might be something to do. Right. And then how do you grow your social media following, right? There's no magic, right? There's no magic fairy dust, miracle grow, right? So just about being regular and consistent, speaking to your ideal market, have that clear brand voice and brand identity, quality content, again, consistently, have your social media follow buttons everywhere. And everybody, either now or at the end of this class, which will be over shortly, check your websites and make sure you have all your social media buttons there. Check and make sure they work. Click on them. Make sure none are missing. I guarantee you, 9 out of 10 people I talk to when they schedule calls with me, and I always go to their websites first, are missing their social media buttons. They're missing some of the buttons, and some of them are broken links. So everybody, that's your homework right now. Go check your buttons and make sure they're there and they're working. Okay. Follow influencers and share their content if you have some in your, like, say, food influencers if you're a food business, right? Subscribe emails, make sure you're promoting it via email. Respond to your followers, right? The people use it for customer service and asking questions, right? Make it easy for others to share your content, use those hashtags, right? And then look at your stats to identify what's popular. You know, what people like video content, they like your pictures of your dog at your business, like whatever. Don't do all like your dog pictures, but look and see what's working out there, right? Let's see. And then somebody asked a question. Did you say not to link the website blog to the LinkedIn post? So correct. You want to do it as an article or a newsletter, depending on where you are, not linking out to your blog on your website. So again, they don't like link outs. They want to keep the content within LinkedIn. That's correct. Oh, there we go. So content, right? It's all about marketing content, right? So this isn't there's no template for this. Okay, just a visual. Nobody asked me for a template. It's going to be different than everybody, right? Your content journey map, so to speak, right? Not everybody's going to be on all these platforms. This is just an example. I'm not saying everybody has to be on Pinterest and YouTube and TikTok and all of these here, but look at your content going on a journey, not as silos. Like I have this blog over here, I got to do an email, I got the YouTube videos, I have my Facebook, right? How can you recycle content and use it across all of your platforms, right? I could take a blog post, turn it into a couple of YouTube videos. Maybe I send it out via email, share it on Facebook. So this is just for you to think about, how do I take that content, one piece of content, turn it into, 33 pieces of content, whatever that is for you. So I want you just kind of, this is for a visual to show you that you need to look at your content as being recycled in other places and reused. Okay. And then content pillars, right? So content pillars and content types. I don't know if anybody's done their content pillars, two different things. So these 4 buckets here, right? Educational, inspirational, promotional, and interactive. These are the kind of the 4 buckets of content you should have on social media and your emails as well, right? So your educational, that covers a lot of different things on there, how-to guides, FAQs, tutorials. Inspirational could be success stories, motivational quotes, behind the scenes. Promotional, right? We probably are really good at that, right? Here's my product, here's my service. Interactive could be quizzes, polls, contests, etc. So those are 4 buckets. And then you have content pillars. So exactly what it says here, they're the key topics or themes that your brand's content will revolve around, right? So they're going to give you that consistency, right? So the 4 or 5 pillars for the different types of posts you're going to do each week, so that you're covering all of these different types here: educational, promotional, inspirational, etc. So you don't leave anything off. I'll show you some examples of what I'm talking about. Sorry, let me go back again. My magic mouse is too magic. Okay. So here's the breakdown, right? 10% promotional and 70, 80, 90% a mix of the informational, inspirational, etc. Right? We want to be informational. We want to educate, market to our customers here. So that's a breakdown. And then here's some examples. And you can, if you're using AI, go to whatever tool, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, whatever, and give it information about who you are, your business. On the paid version of ChatGPT, if you can put in your website address, have it go to your site, learn about who you are, and say, I need some content pillars. So this one example, this was a client for businesses that help business with company culture, leadership building skills, employee retention plans, and more, right? So they'll spit out like 8 or 10 of them and pick like the top 4. Start with 4. So that'd be 4 posts per week. As I mentioned, that's a good start, right? And pick one from each bucket, right? So maybe like this client, maybe their top ones that they'd have content every week that they could post, right? Don't pick ones that it's like once in a while. So maybe leadership development, employee retention, testimonials and success stories, and industry insights and trends. Now, might not pick testimonials if they only have one once in a while. That might be a sub pillar. So pick your 4 strongest ones that you're covering all the buckets. I'm going to show you some other examples. Here's a winery. We have any wineries in the room? So their top ones might be wine education, events and tastings, promotions, so it's money, and pairings and recipes. And then they can sprinkle in whenever they have a review or maybe a little bit about vineyard life or sustainability. Those won't be strongest ones, but they can sprinkle those in. Cover your top pillars that cover those buckets. a couple other examples, a travel agency, lots of stuff to post about. Could be maybe destination spotlights, travel tips and advice, travel deals and promotions. All right, got to cover that. And then maybe local cultures and traditions. And then the other ones you can sprinkle in, right? So if those pillars make sense. Last one, nonprofits. Any nonprofits in the room, right? You probably have similar pillars, right? Your impact stories, like who or what you help, right? Maybe volunteer and donor spotlights. Of course, your events and fundraisers, got to raise money. And then maybe community engagement would be your fourth one. And then the other ones, again, you sprinkle in as you have content for them, build on that. So hopefully pillars make sense, right? And then as far as getting a process in place, right? Probably is overwhelming and we raise your hand, like, I got to create all this content. I got to schedule it out, got to, plan for the content, right? It is a lot of work, right? So can be overwhelming. I say have a process in place to deal with it, right? Depending on if you're doing it yourself or you're hiring people, still have a process in place either way to make sure everything's getting done consistently, right? So this is my process. So I break it down into these steps each month. So if I do done for you services for some clients. So every month I'm working a month ahead, right? We're already at almost the end of February. So March content is already just about done. It's in review process with the clients and any edits we have to do before the end of the month, right? So the first step, first couple of days of the month is your planning time, filling out your calendar, right? And planning what kind of content you're going to do. Then the biggest block is you're creating it. I got to create the posts. I got to do the blogs, your email marketing, right? Getting all that content done. That could be, a couple hours a week or more. And then scheduling it, using scheduling tools at the end of the month to get all the content out. So if you're working at least 1 month ahead, so by the 15th, 20th of the month, I get all the content out to my clients to review it. And then if they need to come back with any edits, I have time to still edit. They can re-review it. And then at the end of the month, I can schedule everything out. So today's the 24th. I don't even know what's being posted because we posted them back at the beginning of the month. And again, we're already wrapping up March already. Get as far ahead as you can with your content, right? Not always in this catch-up mode of like, I don't know what to post. Oh, I don't have time. Block the time in your calendar, honor that time because we know business owners, our time slips away and we don't do it, like, I'll just do it tomorrow. And then a whole week goes by and you haven't posted anything. Makes sense. And then use tools, right? Canva, everybody love Canva. You can create all of your social media posts, emails, marketing materials, all here. Great tool. I would say pay for the pro version, right? That's some thumbs up. The free version is okay, but there's so many more tools and it's like $10 or $15 a month. You're going to use it a lot for marketing, for your social media, all of that stuff. It's worth it with all the extra tools that they have now. It's incredible compared to I don't know, I've been using it for 10 plus years already, how much it's grown, all the AI tools that are incorporated in it. So definitely, use a tool like this to create that content. And it's fairly easy to use once you start playing with it. Metricool is a scheduling tool that I use. So it's metricool.com. I've used many social media scheduling tools over the years, Post Planner, Later, Buffer, Hootsuite, etc. I like Metricool. I picked it a couple of years ago because they had really good reporting tools and analytics, which I needed for my clients, and good scheduling tools too. I can multi-post. You can kind of see here in the picture where I have like Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, right? Google all at once, right? And I can again tweak it per post. So put the link in bio for Instagram and put the live link for the other ones, right? So makes it super easy to schedule your posts out. And then final thoughts. I know we're over time here, but is your social media built to perform or just exist? Ask yourself, do I know exactly who I'm trying to reach, where to best reach them, and what I want to do with them? Can I explain my content plan in one sentence? Right? Can I realistically post consistently for the next 90 days? Again, having that plan in place, you're not overwhelmed. Do my posts look and sound like my brand? Do they connect with my audience? Am I building relationships and not just posting? Okay. And then definitely measuring, looking under the hood, what's working, what's not. And if I keep doing it the same way, where will I be in 6 months from now? So things to think about for your social media. If you want to talk to me about your social media or marketing, whatever, you're welcome to schedule a strategy session with me. You can go to that QR code or go to callwithpatty.com and you get a half hour to pick my brain, whatever's left of it. Ask me any questions about marketing out there that I can help with. So I'm just going to look real quick and see if there's any questions I miss. Oops, sorry about that. Let me go back. Amy asks, what if your business has 3 owners? Whose account do you link it to? I think you're probably talking about LinkedIn, Amy, if you're still here. So it does get a little bit tricky, right, with LinkedIn. And I assume if you're talking about LinkedIn, um, I would say if you're all active on LinkedIn, you all can make connections. If it's maybe one, and it depends on the like owners, right? Not like you hired a CEO and they're not the owner of the company and they might come and go. They own the connections, right? So if you have employees that are connecting to people on LinkedIn and they leave, they own the connections under their profile. But I would say if all 3 owners are on there and they maybe have their own set of connections, you can do that as well. If you find one is like that's really the person who's kind of the salesperson, so to speak, connection person, you can just do it under the one. But if all 3 of you have a good amount of connections, post under all of you. So in one, you all should have access to your company page. You all should be admins. One of you will own it. You'll be the super admin. So the company page would be set up under one of yours. The other 2, right? You'd add them as admins, right? So all 3 of you can manage the company page. But all 3 of you probably should post on, if you all are active and have connections and you're building those relationships, all 3 of you can post. Like I said, if I was working with you, I've done this with clients. I have access to their profiles and I put them in my scheduling tools. I will post to all 3 of you and your company page, right? To make sure you have consistency across everybody, right? So again, this depends on your setup too. So I hope that answered the question. What type of content can I post as a clothing brand? Clothes. Sorry, the obvious question. Obviously your clothes. It could be, there could be some educational content on there about your clothes. I'd have to kind of know more about your brand, but generally it's going to be about the product. If you're a consumer-based product as well, there might be other educational content that you post about it, maybe stories about you and why you have this clothing brand. I don't know if it's your own brand or designs or if you're kind of like a drop shipper kind of thing. But there could be other content, but generally you're going to be sharing the clothes, right? Let's see. Use a shared or HR email as an admin, like the general inbox. Yeah, you could. But you all would have your own, I think you're talking about you'd have your own profiles under your own emails. So you definitely would have, and then of course under your names and all that. I think that you're referring to, Jessica. Um, let's see. Thank you. Okay, I think that was it. Okay, I think that's it. Questions? Did I answer them all? If not, schedule some time with me. I'm happy to answer any questions that didn't get answered here. If you wanted to ask them privately. My company wants me to join their LinkedIn page, but I have my own business and that's in my headline. Again, it's a little tricky, right? As I mentioned earlier about having different situations, right? So if you have your own business, but you also have a company, you work for somebody else, you have to kind of decide where, does the company require you to make LinkedIn connections or are you just there to make connections for your own business? So you kind of have to figure out which one, because it does get confusing if somebody sees you work like the Goldman Sachs, you work for Goldman Sachs and now you have your own business coaching business. It's kind of the same like, who are you? Are you the financial analyst or are you the business coach? So if you have both there, and they're unrelated perhaps. So yeah, you kind of have to pick a lane, so to speak. Hopefully that helps. Suggestions for what to post if a visual design company, but client requires NDA for products design. I'm limited with photos I can post. Yeah, I mean, if they require, like they don't let you because privacy reasons, whatever you can post up there, of course, if you're just looking for like people to see your work, that is a little bit tricky. So post what you can, what you're allowed to, but yeah, well, that makes sense. Let's see, we're B2B. Let me see if there's any other questions. Okay. Um, Yeah, I'll go ahead and leave it there. Any other questions? We're already 45 minutes over. We'll finish there. Any questions, hit me up, schedule a call with me. I'm happy to answer any other questions. So I will pass it back to Score to say goodbye. Thank you, everyone. I hope this was useful, and get out there and be social. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for attending today, and be sure to look at our schedule of upcoming webinar workshops, and we hope to see you again very soon.
Thank you, everyone.